Hi, Jaden. Okay, I'm going to try to do something tricky here, which is to explain more in detail about the feedback that I want to give you. And I'm going to do that by providing you with at least three other screenshots, images of other students' work in terms of their concept maps. Okay, but first, let's look at yours. So, when I look at yours, the first thing I want to do is count what you've got in your shapes. So, those key circles that you've made. Um, seem to have some ideas. You've started to play a little bit with color, but also I think but you need to know that in my mind, the number that I'm looking for is the number 40, 40. So if I counted just the circles, that's nowhere near 40. That's like a quarter of that, right? You're closer to 10. So what I'm thinking, and this is the first piece of feedback is that you could do, is let's first break up some of those ideas. So, looking at the circle that you've got psychological fight or flight response in, that's actually three different concepts. You've got the fact that that's psychology. So, I would have a line from why do humans like to be scared, and then a circle called psychology. And maybe if you agree, then your entire pink area would only be related to psychology but not physiology. And physiology describes the adrenaline that you're talking about in a different circle. So have a look at that content and make sure that you understand the difference between psychology and physiology, because the fight or flight response is both. The fight response relates to the amygdala, which is part of the physiological response. But the actual, um, how can I put it? The actual movement from, like, "I wanna just kill this thing," to, "I'm going to do this," and then doing it, that's all psychology about whether you've got control of your brain to then control your physiology, your body, right, in terms of that response. So, do you see how that one circle can break up into at least 3 more topics? I would say it could be even more like 6 if you include the word amygdala in a different response, and then tell me more about the psychology. Like, why is it that some people are more attracted to fight or flight or to fear at all? Do you see the psychology in any of the other things that you've put here? I do. If I move down to the brown circle where it says narrative conflict and resolution, that's a really complicated circle. I would separate out conflict, I would separate resolution, and I would separate out the narrative technique of developing that conflict and resolution. I think maybe what you're going through for in that area is that you want to talk about narrative techniques. So maybe that's the circle that then leads to something like tension. But if you relate conflict back to psychology, then you're creating that level 4 crosslink that I'm looking for. I wanna show you a few examples so that you're not totally confused. So have a look now at these examples that I've given you. One is, a student exemplar on a wall. You see that one? Okay, so if we're looking at the one that's on a wall, it's in green and pink stickies. The reason that this is so great is because we've got a nice number of objects. We've got the fact that it's still a visual representation, even though it's not done with a digital thing in the way that you're trying to do. And this is why, if you are feeling like, and I don't know, that the software itself is overwhelming, you have other options. Okay. So don't let the software hold you back. But you can see that in this person's area, they've started to focus not so much on the psychology and physiology as you're doing, but they focused on filmmaking and developing fear in media. And there's some really nice pieces there. Another student exemplar that I want to show you, if you'll have a look at it with me, is the one that's called Why Do Humans Like to Be Scared? And it's got these big green arrows on it. You can see that actually it's from the top all the way down, is how it's structured. There is some meaning in the fact that certain things are blue and certain things are orange, and a lot of it is green. But what I really love about this particular concept map is the first thing is it all relates to catharsis, which I think is pretty neat because catharsis, it really answers the question right away. So that might be a technique that you try instead of using fear in the middle. Say, well, what question am I trying to answer there? Um, and then the other thing that's really, really well done is that the concepts are labeled really specifically, but they're also the connection lines are labeled really specifically. And then, of course, I love the fact that there is some fun in this. So if you feel like you want to add in those media pieces, that's sort of the level 4 that I'm going for. Yeah, of course, there are weaknesses to this as well. There are a few spelling mistakes. It's not necessarily like exactly how I think of it. I don't think it represents the depth of psychology that you want to talk about, and that you've shown already in your concept map, but it is starting to go that way, and it does a good job all on its own. So the final one that I want to show you, this one was done in Lucid Chart. And it's massive, and honestly, it's, like, the best thing I've ever seen. Um, has horror in the middle of one area, and that has fear in another area, and so the contrast, that comparison thing that we've been trying to do all semester, between, Beyoncé's 2 performances or between these 3 short stories, that's sort of starting to really come out here. I love it, and so I love the fact that each area is really, really well developed. What's the downside of this one? The downside of this one is that not every single line is labeled. Having said that, the depth of thought here, the fact that there's an extra red outline around some of the squares that are like really key in terms of the learning of the student shows the level of reflection that I want to look for that ultimate level 4. I hope that seeing some other approaches to this assignment gives you confidence to try it again. Please let me know if you want additional support.